Step out on the stage when I'm about to get it. Like I bust out of this cage when I started winning. Watch the bright lights fade when I'm on them swinging. Plus I'm about to get paid like I'm on a mission. This ain't fight night, baby, this is night, yeah. Feeling right, knuckles clench, I got the mic tight. Lay my belt on the bench cause it's in my sights, yeah. Plus I'm coming for your head, Chuck, ice tight. I ain't no stranger to circumstance, don't notice I'm about to dance. I keep my ship tight cause any moment I'm throwing hands. I'm blowing up on your man, KOing him on demand. Fight of the night, bitch, I'll put ice in my corner, man. Coming for the win, no weakness. Kote on a mission, no secret. Flick of the wrist, no sleepers.
Hi guys, welcome to another For the Win MMA interview. This week's guest is somebody that we all love. It's Mr. Jon Anik. How you doing, John? Good to see you again.
Good to see your shining face again too, my man. How are you?
Yeah, am I too shiny? Is it because I'm happy to see you, man? I don't know, but here we are, glistening. We have the number one commentator, the man of the business, the number one man in the business, the pronunciation magician, representing Boston and all that sexy accent. Is it true that your nickname is Real hasta la muerte, Anik?
Oh, I love it. I hope you're not going to ask me to say it without my phonetics. No, you know what's interesting about that? And, you know, when we pronounce the artist name as Anuel AA, right? A lot of people suggested that that's not his name, that it's Anuel or whatever it is, right?
Right.
I had very specific direct orders to call him Anuel AA. If that's wrong, I have a lot of people that I need to talk to, you know. But when it comes to phonetics in any language and it comes to pronouncing something like that, it's about practice. We're talking about practice, right? So obviously, people are always going to have their own little nuances when it comes to language, but I feel like if you practice, you should be able to say almost anything.
Absolutely, man. What I think about is all the hours that you had to put in with Cody Mero and Anik, I mean, with Florian in the podcast to do the pronunciation of the week, which low-key is like my favorite part of that show right now, to see you guys kind of struggle and sometimes nailing it like champs. It has to be a lot of work, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's a labor of love when it comes to pronunciations. When I was hired by the UFC in 2011, they didn't have a pronunciation guide. And it was almost like we were winging it back then. Now, of course, as you know, we have audio files for every fighter on the roster. And certainly makes my life easier, right? Because somebody says, hey, man, you're pronouncing that wrong. And it's like, hey, man, I got him saying his name to tape. So I think we're good.
Man, when you started the Bahamondes thing, I mean, you nailed it. You took it out of the park, and we loved it. Like, we could all see that the work was being done, and you did it great. Since we're on the subject of the Anik and Florian podcast, I just want to congratulate you on a great season. It has been an amazing companion for all the fight fans around the world. I just want to get some thoughts of you of what's coming next for the Anik and Florian podcast, and how do you assess this year?
Well, thank you, man. You know, we feel like meat and potatoes, right, can be sort of a negative term when it says, oh, you know, that podcast is kind of meat and potatoes, right? Every week you're getting a recap, and you're getting picks for the next week, and you're getting a Ray Longo minute. Certainly there's a lot more to the podcast, as you know, than that. But generally speaking, we try to be pretty meat and potatoes when it comes to the content, because I do think the overwhelming majority of people in the fight game, fighters, coaches, referees, officials, avid fans, that's what they're looking for, you know. And certainly we have the best analysts in the game, at least in my opinion, and that's why I, you know, aligned with Kenny Florian in 2015. It's crazy that we're coming up on 7 years. You know, we wouldn't turn our nose up at a licensing deal, but again, we're focused on the content and it being weekly and it being free. And now actually I'm home for 30 straight nights, which is not at all my reality during the year. So I have some time to focus on it and see if maybe there might be a licensing deal worth pursuing for next year. But we're excited for our awards show coming up, and just excited to keep it going. You know, it's kind of the little engine that could.
Yeah, of course, man. It's award season. You said it. I want you to give me like a quick assessment. I know we're going to get deep in some of the stuff we're going to talk about, but this year has given us a bunch of classics, right? New champs were crowned, and of course some new heights were reached by the sport as a whole. What are some of your moments that stand out?
You know, it was such an incredible year, my man, that I almost want to cancel the award show, right? And I wouldn't cancel the award show because it would be such a disservice to the athletes, right? But where do you even begin with knockout of the year? I would throw it back to you, right? I mean, certainly for me, I look at Brandon Moreno and Glover Teixeira breaking through and becoming first-time UFC champions. And they may not get fighter of the year consideration because of what Charles Oliveira did, you know, in becoming a first-time champion and then defending it. What Rose Namajunas did, 2 head-to-head wins over Zhang Weili, and Kamaru Usman with wins over Gilbert Burns, Jorge Masvidal, and Colby Covington. You know, to me, I think fighter of the year is probably going to come down to Charles Oliveira and Kamaru Usman, but an incredible year, so many breakout performances. And I guess for me, whose primary job it is to humanize these athletes and help the UFC build stars, you know, Paddy Pimblett, right? I mean, everybody's always wondering, even pre-Adesanya, oh, when's the next star going to emerge? You know, there's always going to be stars emerging. Ian Gary, I'm very excited about the future.
Yeah, of course. Well, it's award season. You said it yourself. You're doing an award show. We're doing an award show here. To take you up on what you said before, our nominees for Knockout of the Year are Corey Sandhagen, Francis Ngannou, Rose Namajunas, Kamaru Usman, Jiri Prochazka, Ignacio Bahamondes, and Sergio Perez. Out of those guys, man, it's hard for me to say because there's a lot of... The Kamaru Usman knockout was amazing. That's like my personal favorite, but the soil, it's something else. My Chilean roots run so deep.
Of course.
I feel the need to include Ignacio Bahamondes in the mix as well. Out of those guys that I just mentioned, is it Usman for you? Is it somebody else?
Gosh, you know what's interesting? Like, we were talking about Dan Ige against Gavin Tucker as a nominee, and you know it's not going to win the knockout of the year, and it probably won't on our show, but it just speaks to the depth in the category. Certainly, you got to give Ignacio Bahamondes some consideration. Kamaru Usman, of course. I think it might end up being Yuri Prochazka for me, man. I don't know. The category is impossibly difficult. You know, the awards should be a celebration. It shouldn't give us anxiety. But the fact that I feel the need to inject Dan Ige's name into the conversation just speaks to how great a year it was.
Yeah, it was really hard to cut people out of those lists, man. I mean, I've been working on the awards for like 2 months, and last weekend I was still figuring out some of the candidates for the nominations. So guys, if you want to check out and do your votes, you can do it in the Anik and Florian podcast. Does it have a name, your award show? Is it like,
yes,
I don't know.
They're called the AFPAs, the Anik and Florian podcast awards.
I like that.
The AFPAs. They've been the AFPAs for a while, and that was the best we could do in the moment, and it kind of stuck. I mean, I think I told you, maybe not, but when we started the podcast, the name of the show was not what we were worried about, right? We were just worried about the content. And it was like, well, we couldn't come up with a better name than the Anik and Florian podcast. So that was a placeholder, and it stuck.
Well, in our case, it's just a For the Win Awards. We lacked out of creativity because of all the shit we had to do, man. So we were kind of tired by the time it got there. So, okay, For the Win Awards it is, man. So let me take you back to last Saturday, man. First of all, how do you feel about it? Like, you just had a podcast with Kenny and Longo, of course, and our mutual friend James Krause, and you guys did an awesome breakdown on everything that happened. But I want to talk to Anik the fan.
My gosh, man,
Yeah,
I don't
man.
even know what to say. Right?
Where
There
can
are
you
times
start?
when you're in that seat. There are times when you're in that seat when it's hard to talk because you're such a fan. And I think if you saw what Rogan posted on social media, it kind of speaks to that, right? There are crazy things that are happening. And sometimes as a fan, you just want to kind of sit back and ingest it or just say, oh, or oh my gosh, you know, and obviously that is not our luxury nor our reality. So, yeah, man, it's cool to be able to digest it with my twin brother, who obviously has a huge appetite for this stuff right now. And that's kind of my means by which I decompress. But yeah, I had a hard time sleeping. I mean, Dominick Cruz is one of my best friends in the world. And I think a lot of this night for me is kind of rooted in his win because I know how badly he needed it. So, yeah, man, it was a special night. It was the card of the year for me. UFC 269, certainly the card of the year when I look at the prelims and I look at some of the performances that deserve probably 3 or 4 minutes on our podcast, like Bruno Silva and Andre Muniz, and we didn't even get to talk about those guys. Briefly mentioned Muniz off the top of the show. But man, the athletes delivered in such a big way, especially in the fourth quarter this year. And yeah, just thankful to be in the building, man. You know, you're not thinking necessarily as it's going on about how special a night it is. I'm really not, right? And I'm not thinking about it as the card of the year until I sit down with you, really. But now being asked as a fan, being probed in that way, one of the more special nights in my career for sure.
Well, you mentioned my cousin Dominic, so it's a good way to start this conversation about UFC 269. Cruz showed a veteran savviness to this game, right? He was surviving an early onslaught to win it in the next 2 rounds. As 2021 ends, Cruz impressively established himself as a legit contender still. And he did not only came back after 2 knockdowns to win the fight, he also proved that he's still a contender almost 12 years later since he won his WEC title. And that's insane for me. I want to get your thoughts on what's coming next for Cruz.
Well, there's a lot to unpack when it comes to Cruz. I'll try to do it pretty efficiently in 90 seconds, but he really is Tom Brady mentally, right, in terms of the way he approaches the game. Very strategic in terms of attacking this matchup against a conventional Pedro Munhoz. But he also has that dog in him. From some of the first conversations we ever had, he has said to me, like, I can take a beating if I need to. If I have to lean on the heart, I absolutely can. And obviously getting buckled there early in the fight and then coming back the way he did, letting his combinations go. You know, this type of matchup against a fairly linear Pedro Munhoz allows him to really let his combinations go. You couple that with the fact that Pedro is a right-handed fighter, and it was the recipe for success. Certainly he's not trying to get hit like that and get off to a slow start, but a huge win. He has a 2-fight winning streak at 36 years old. His body held up in training. He was able to get in the requisite rounds, which is huge for him. He's very sort of buoyed by the confidence gain from the Casey Kenny fight, a whole training camp for a true lefty. So in terms of what's next, I guess, you know, Jose Aldo is the name on the tip of his tongue. I don't know if Jose Aldo wants that fight right now. I don't know if the calendar will align. You know, that's a big part of things is if Jose wants a quick turn right now and wants to fight in 3 months, you know, does Dominic want to make that turn? So there are a lot of variables, but it can be said Dominic will be at least in the top 8, and he's positioned himself for a massive, massive fight next.
Yeah, that for sure takes the #1 spot in my dream fights for next year. To see Jose Aldo against Dominick Cruz, man, that would be a banger. Well, the Sugar Show came back and he scored an amazing TKO against Paiva. O'Malley gets his money train going with another clean KO. It's smart that he keeps facing lower level guys, of course. That keeps increasing his profile, but I think he deserves a contender next. He probably won't get one though. I don't think his fan base will care that much. What are your thoughts on the Sugar Show and what's next?
Well, respectfully, I wouldn't call Howley and Paiva lower level, right? I mean, I think very highly of Kyler Phillips. Kyler Phillips was number 14 in the world when he fought Howley and Paiva. That was a close fight. You know, I kind of thought maybe Kyler Phillips deserved the nod, but Howley and Paiva gave him everything that he could handle. So I don't know, man. You know, sometimes I feel like we're in a rush to kind of denigrate the competition, like Khamzat Chimaev, right? What are we saying about Gerald Meerschaert and Li Jingliang if we say that Khamzat Chimaev hasn't fought anybody? You know, look what Li Jingliang did to Santiago Ponzinibbio, who was just very competitive with Jeff Neal. I know MMA math doesn't always add up, but I think Khamzat Chimaev is special, and I think Sean O'Malley is special. I think there are guys in the top 8 that he's favored to beat right now. You know, he just had a super high quality win and needed far less time than Kyler Phillips to beat Paiva. He's got all the skills in the world and he's only getting better. You know, he wasn't healthy in this training camp and was still able to deliver. And I think if I have big question marks for Sean O'Malley, it's his durability and his health, you know, because he's been injured in fights at least twice in the UFC. And now we hear that he had a rib issue in training camp that sort of bled into this fight. So he's going to have to deal with some stuff. There's no doubt about it in terms of, being a little bit brittle and fragile. But great frame for the division, great skills, fast as hell, underrated grappler. I'm really excited to see what he can do. And I don't know, you and I agree on most things. I do believe he's going to get that high-profile fight. So I think we kind of disagree on that.
Yeah, I know, but it's been said that he's going to face top-tier competition soon. It doesn't happen. So I don't know. It's just me being distrustful of what the company wants next. But it's just me being...
Well, let me just say this. Let me add this very quickly.
Right.
It's a little bit of a tricky proposition because he's a very dangerous fight, right? And at least up until this point, he didn't have a ranking. So even right now, if you're Dominick Cruz, obviously there's tremendous value in beating Sean O'Malley or beating Khamzat Chimaev, even if they're ranked below you. Don't sit here and tell me that Khamzat Chimaev isn't the biggest win that Gilbert Burns could go get right now other than
Absolutely,
a title fight. That's the biggest win he could go get. So I don't give a shit if it's number 2 versus number 11,
Right.
So as far as Cruz and O'Malley are concerned, I think people get hell-bent on the rankings a little bit. But part of the reason why Dominic maybe would have more of an appetite for Jose Aldo and not Sean O'Malley, Sean O'Malley has some tremendous long-range weapons and a ton of power, and it's a very dangerous fight against a number 16 guy in the world.
Right.
So part of the reason why maybe that big fight hasn't materialized is because there aren't long lines to fight guys like Sean O'Malley.
You got me all excited, and I got warm, so I'm going to take off this. And, what do we got here, baby? What do we got here?
Stop paying for that stuff? Can you stop paying for that stuff? Just send me your address, my man. I appreciate the
Man,
support.
of course I will. I'll take you up on that because I had a little incident with my Anik and Florian tee. I forgot to take it out of the dryer, and it kind of blew on me.
We will take care of you. We will take care of you.
Man, so, this shit right here, where we can get this for the fans that are looking to sport some Jon Anik.
It looks great on you. Well, thank you. So the One More Sleep t-shirts, hoodies, and hats, millions.co. Promo code my last name, Anik, you get 10% off. And it's amazing, man, how it sort of took off. I never had intentions to really sell merchandise, but I was at a hotel in Arizona and I came back from a weigh-in or something,
right,
and fans started chanting "One More Sleep," and my wheels started turning, and here we are.
That was the universe telling you to do something for the moolah. I was going to ask you how much of an influence in this regard was Bruce Buffer, because he's a man who's known to monetize every single word out of his mouth. So is this
influence? Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, he's a bully.
It's his company, right?
I mean,
Millions.com.
Yes, he is one of the founders, and the company is unbelievable. Adrian Scott and everybody else, they are world class, right? When my friend Susie passed away, right, they pledged $10,000 to a charity of her choice, and they barely knew me at that point in time. And then I said, that's very generous. We'll each do $5,000. And then they said, oh, no, you can add your $5,000, but we pledged $10,000 for Susie. Absolutely incredible men. But Buffer's a bully, man, Gosh, he was after me a while, obviously, and I'm certainly thankful to have aligned with those guys. And, we're in the process of trademarking it and everything else, so we're excited.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Well, best of luck on that. Let me take you back to the card because there's a lot of things we still need to unpack. Don't fucking blink, Anik. Don't blink. What do you think of that? I mean, Kai looked faster than the notoriously fast Cody Garbrandt and got the biggest win of his career, in my opinion. In terms of what happened to Garbrandt, the weight cut always worried me. Cody relies on speed, but he kind of gave that up, and his durability didn't get better with that cut either. So big cuts and dehydration, that's not a good mix. How do you feel about this?
So Cody Garbrandt has asked a lot of himself athletically, and maybe you've heard me say that before, but he was 32-1 as an amateur boxer. He played high school football at a high level.
That's a lot.
And I just think, man, there's only so many shots you can take. So I wouldn't relate it to the weight cut. With Dr. Matteo Capadaglio, he really methodically built himself down over 7 months. So I don't know that that's what led to his inability to take the shot. I just think it's that power right of Kai Kara-France. I want to see Kara-France fight Manel Kape, as Daniel Cormier said on the broadcast. That is a true flyweight title eliminator. You have Kara-France fight Manel Kape in a 5-round main event. and the winner gets the winner of Davison Figueiredo and Brandon Moreno. I mean, that's the way I would do it. I know Israel Adesanya is going to scream from the rooftops that Kai Kara-France is title shot worthy right now. I think he's won 2 in a row, if I'm not mistaken. I want to see him fight Manel Kape, and I think the winner of that fight would be someone that the fans would really want to see in a flyweight championship fight.
And to think that a few months ago, people were taking that division for dead, right?
I know. It's crazy, man. It's crazy. I mean, no man should weigh 125 pounds, but the division is.
Absolutely. Well, let's get to the meat and potatoes of it all, man. Which way you want to go? Do you want to go Nunes and Peña? Do you want to go Dustin and... I'll leave it up to you.
I wanted to lead my show with Charles Oliveira, but we led with Julianna Peña. So maybe you and I can lead with Charlie Olives.
Yeah, seems fair, man. Well, the first round was the most intense, high-paced round that I've ever seen. Charles mixing hands, elbows, knees. I don't know anyone in the division who does that better than him. And then Poirier throwing bombs, hurting Charles every time he landed. Significant strikes. There were 54 for Dustin and 48 for Charles in the first round alone. That fight was never supposed to go the distance, in my opinion. So, how do you feel about it?
Absolutely incredible. I feel great for Charles, who absolutely was willing to walk through hell to get the job done, and that is a part of his style, and I just think he's so present and focused in there, even when he does get hurt a little bit or he gets hit. And I think he's a byproduct of his experience, but he is danger, man. His danger factor, I think your buddy James Krause likes to talk about that. His danger factor is just so goddamn high that you never feel safe. And he's a very hard guy to prepare for, very hard guy to simulate in training. I just feel so good for him because the fact that anybody would call somebody else the uncrowned champion when you're the undisputed title holder and there's not even an interim belt out there seems so distasteful. So to be able to get a finish over a guy like Dustin Poirier really just cements his championship status. It cements his Hall of Fame status. And I don't know how you couldn't call him an all-time great as the best finisher in UFC history on paper. So super happy for Charles. It's going to be hard for Dustin to build himself back into a third shot at the undisputed title. I think he can do it with 2 wins probably. And stranger things have happened, obviously, with 1 win, I guess, supposedly he could. But got to be a tough week this week, I would think, for Dustin Poirier, given, the pressure that he put on himself to win the big one, so to speak.
Yeah, it felt weird. I mean, on one side you have people questioning Oliveira's heart, which is something that I don't understand at all. I mean, the guy has the numbers to back everything up, and I know that sometimes he has faced some adversity and he has been folded by a few guys, but who hasn't? This is high level MMA, so
right.
I don't question the man's heart. That kind of messed with me on the previous.
I agree. No, I agree. And I think you and I are sort of singing the same song. I feel like it's kind of a lazy narrative, right? And I think Anthony Lionheart-Smith put it best on our post show on ESPN Plus. He said, Charles has struggled with adversity. And you kind of hit on that as well, right? Struggling with adversity or, living to fight another day when you don't have it in your body to finish. And maybe it gives off a vibe that's a lack of heart. I don't think it's that big a deal. I think sometimes his body language has been a little bit misunderstood. I think he was fighting in the wrong weight class for a lot of years. But man, I don't know if you heard me say this. When he filled out his UFC bio for the first time when he was 20 years old, and it lists strengths, I don't know if it lists weaknesses, but on the line that says strengths, all he wrote was heart. So you got to at least respect the fact that as a 20-year-old kid, he wasn't thinking about his obviously incredibly layered skill set, which has grown since, but he felt like coming into the UFC, his biggest asset might be his heart and toughness. So, I think it's been lazy, and I'm happy to see him put it to rest for good.
Yeah, absolutely. And for Poirier, what a sour turn of events, because he was hell-bent on getting that title, and now he has to go back to the drawing board. How do you feel the next year will be for Dustin? I know he needs to take some time off. I mean, the amount of stress and the amount of work that goes into carrying so many fights during this year has taken a toll, I guess. So how do you see next year for him?
3 main events, 3 championship training camps, essentially, even though the Conor fights weren't title fights. I don't know. I think you can argue that he bit off more than he could chew. And because Charles Oliveira broke through and won the championship in May, and then Dustin beat Conor in July, even though it was a short fight, training camp's long as hell, man. Fight's just one day, right? So I feel like Dustin kind of knew if he was going to get that undisputed title fight, it was going to have to get it in before the end of the year. And I just think he needed more time. When I asked him about that in our fighter meeting, and I apologize if you've heard me say this before, but I said, hey, man, when Dominick Cruz had 3 title fights in 2016, it's just a little bit too much. I know your fights have been short, but what do you have for us on that? And he looked into the camera and he said the shortest answer he's ever given me in a fighter meeting. He said, John, I'm grateful for 2021, but I need a vacation. And, that's pretty telling, right? So I think he'll take the first half of the year off. Maybe you see him International Fight Week against Michael Chandler or Conor, or we'll have to see. I don't know what Conor's timeline is like, but Dustin's going to be in a big fight, and it's going to be a title eliminator. And, man, there's going to be a lot of pressure on him if he does get back to an undisputed championship situation. But I wouldn't bet against him I wouldn't bet against him getting back there.
Yeah, he's definitely still in the mix for sure. Well, let me start by talking about a little mishap that I had talking about Amanda Nunes and Julianna Peña. I was invited to national radio, and we were discussing the fights and what was my analysis, and I was bold enough to say, well, guys, there's nothing to discuss here. It's Amanda Nunes, first round, whatever she wants to go, that's what she's gonna get, right? And now,
wow,
I sit here before you eating my fucking words, Anik. So I don't know if you feel the same way. I know that you have a close relationship with the former champ, and of course, Julianna Peña is an inspirational story on its own. So I don't know how we want to grab this first.
I said before the fight, if I had to send any bantamweight in the world in there to beat Amanda Nunes, and you gave me anybody, that's who I'd send in there, Julianna Peña, right? I wouldn't send Ketlin Vieira or Rene Aldana or Holly Holm or Jermaine Durandamy. Valentina Shevchenko I might send in there, but she's a flyweight right now.
Right.
Julianna Peña is mean. She is nasty. She now is starting to believe in her skills more than ever. Worked so hard for this opportunity several times over. When she submitted Sarah McMahon on Fight Island in January of this year, I felt like she was the number 1 contender. I felt like she had done enough to earn that championship opportunity. I told her that in an airport lounge. I couldn't be happier for her. Sometimes I think when we see Amanda Nunes chiseled 134.5 pounds on the stage, on the scale, we lean too much into the positive when we don't really know how she's doing. And obviously, I think her approach left a lot to be desired. It seemed like maybe she left her fight IQ at home. A little bit overconfident, but I just think sometimes on fight night and in training camp, you just don't feel great. It didn't seem like it was a great camp. Now, retrospectively, we can say that it seemed like there were some technical things in camp she was trying to work through that she was unable to. And just felt like maybe she woke up and didn't feel great, but it's hard, right? We ain't trying to take anything away from Julianna Peña. And, I think Peña is very competitive in a rematch. Maybe Nunes is a 3-1 favorite in the rematch, and you'd understand why. And I think you'd see Nunes maybe try to play the long game a little bit if they were to rematch here. But if Nunes is turning around in 3 months, it's going to be tough, going to be a huge pressure spot for her. And you can be sure Julianna Peña is going to be even more confident than she was going in the first time. So I'm excited. Certainly, some people even say it's fucking rigged because it injects so much good energy into the bantamweight division. I just think those people are haters, but it really is great for the sport now to see what happens from here.
Well, it was a crazy night. It was a historical event. And I remember Julianna from back in the tough days, and she was already in the mix with her good friend and former champion as well, Miesha Tate. And Miesha always talked with great confidence about what Julianna would be in the future, and now we see it all unfold, and it's crazy, man. Like, I had to eat a shoe and a half. That's all I'll tell you right now. My foot was so deep in my mouth, man. I was so embarrassed.
Well, have you ever gone out on a limb that much before with a fight?
No, this is the first time, and I did it so openly too, on such a big stage. I mean, it was radio for all the country, so yeah, I kind of fucked up on that one. But yeah, you gotta say what you gotta say. That's how I felt at the time, and
Sure.
and that's it. And what if it would happen just the way I called it? I would be a stud, right? So I don't take that much into it. It's a fight game. Anything can happen. The other thing I said that day was that if Julianna wins, it surely is a positive thing in terms of what happens with the division, because it cracks it wide open. And in that regard, I was really welcoming to a Julianna Peña W. That was my piece.
Yeah, I think what will be really interesting is, now that Peña is the champion, presumably an active champion, when does she want to defend that belt, and how soon would Amanda Nunes want to do that, right? Because it doesn't behoove Amanda to, get big and out of shape, Just try to sort of piggyback upon this training camp and the good that resided within it. And I would hope to see them, by April as opposed to July, but we'll see.
Let's switch gears, Charlie. I want to take you to another spot, completely different from what we're discussing now. In January, it's going to be 10 years from you entering the UFC and starting all this amazing path that you're in right now. And you've come a long way from that Gillard versus Miller fight card back in January 2012, from commentator to leading man of the team to being a battle-tested podcaster along Kenny Florian, and now a merch mogul with your own brand and concept, right? So what are your feelings as we approach to the 10-year anniversary of Jon Anik as the voice of the leader in mixed martial arts?
Gosh, I'm happy and thankful for the way everything has played out. I definitely didn't think that I would ascend to the lead seat as quickly as it happened. I think it's crazy for me to think, that I'm coming up on 5 years of doing pay-per-views, But it's been a wild ride, man. There isn't a lot of time to smell the roses. Now I have a little bit of a breather, which is very, very rare because we have no off season. So for me, it's really, it's like a trite answer about earning it every show, but there is no rest for the weary, my man. It is an absolute grind. It's a labor of love, as I say. It's the devil I know. But there's just not a lot of time for reflection unless you're doing an interview like this and maybe people are asking about it, So we're not trying to get worse. We're trying to get better every show. I promise you that my preparation will never change. This past week was really challenging. It was a little condensed with 30 fighters on back-to-back weeks. I actually prepped like 4 fighters on show day, right? I mean, I used every minute of time that I had. I had a lot of different commitments, and I think the biggest challenge for me is just as my profile has increased, more is asked of me every day, right? Even breaking off 45 minutes for you, right? There's always something that can be done, somebody who wants a little piece. And so that has just been a balancing act for me, but I'm certainly thankful. I'm not blind to the fact that there could be a time 6 months from now where nobody wants to talk to me. So, I can't do every interview request that I used to. I used to literally do every one, even if it was mom and dad listening to, Jacob's podcast. But very thankful. And hopefully I got another 10 years in me. I can't imagine having more than another 10 in me, but you never know.
Yeah, I agree, and that was a nice segue you just did about the prep, because you're a man who knows his shit. Absolutely.
Or studies his shit. I don't know if I know it. I learn it.
Yeah, that's what I'm trying to ask you. I need you to walk me through all that process that you must complete before you get prepared for a card, because God knows I would pay a few $100 to get that course, man.
Well, that's interesting. I mean, I give it to you for free, and I'll try to explain my process.
On that.
I'll try to explain it as efficiently as possible here. But when I'm in a back-to-back situation, it's very difficult, right? Because I finish a show and then I wake up Sunday morning and I'm complete fucking toast. And I've got 30 more fighters to learn and all the show formatics. And every time you see us going to break and I say, coming up next, Santiago Ponzinibbio, I write those 15 seconds of copy because I'm trying to maximize it for you and give you, the essence of who he is, right? Because his walkout is going to be in commercial break. Right. So we try to maximize all those windows. So you can't do everything on an ad lib. Right. So essentially my process begins, depending on whether or not I'm a back-to-back situation, but 10 or 12 days out where I'm voicing some of the in-arena combo features for the fights. Then I take our UFC generated biographies. I transfer them, or at least what I think is useful from them, to my fighter cards. I handwrite a new fighter card for every single show. I happen to have Charles Oliveira's fighter card right here, which I can hold up and show your viewers. And handwriting it allows me to study as opposed to just updating his record in a document on my computer, right? I watch film as I'm filling out this fighter card. And then all week, watching UFC Embedded, watching video interviews, right? If I don't talk to a fighter, I obviously have to at least find video of them or some conversation of them, right. And I have to see that with my own eyes, right? I can't trust somebody else to do any of that research. I have to make sure that I've seen him or her say that. And then I'm constantly just adding quotes, adding things to these cards throughout the week. Then I have a whole document that is just the show stuff, Dateline Las Vegas and my show open and all of that stuff. Hours upon hours, my man, hours upon hours. Certainly sometimes there are fight weeks where I'll break off a few hours and go to a live sporting event or go out to dinner. But it's insane, bro. It is absolutely insane, the amount of preparation that goes into it. And even if you just pare it down to like 30 fighters, right? Like, let's say you're calling UFC Fight Night, Lewis versus Daukaus this weekend, 30 fighters, right? How much time are you giving each fighter? Let's say you want to give each fighter an hour of your time. It's almost a full work week. You know what I mean? So let's say you want to give each fighter 30 minutes of your time,
Still 3.
I need a little bit more than that for each fighter, right? So it's still 15 hours. So it's a lot. I miss the days of 11 fights. I pray every night that Nick Maynard and Sean Shelby are watching.
Well, we're living in a time where fans and athletes are voicing their opinions on the broadcast table as never seen before. We had some recent quote-unquote beef, right, between my cousin Dominic and DC, and we've heard some thoughts on biased comments and all that. How do you feel this line of work prepares you for that? Because there's a lot of criticism out there right now.
You mean because we're paid to talk and we have a lot of repetitions to talk, so we know how to navigate those situations? Is that what you're sort of alluding to?
Yeah, I kind of did. You're a smart.
No, I mean, you're not wrong. I mean, that's an interesting connection to make. Everybody prepares differently, right? And I think Dominick Cruz regrets the setting in which he made those comments, but I have heard a lot of things come out of the mouth of Dominick Cruz over the years. And, he's said some things to me that maybe at a time in my life would have been hurtful, when in actuality, it's truth that I need to hear. He's a straight shooter, and I'm never really surprised by anything that comes out of his mouth, and, I also think he comes at things from a place where, he doesn't take a paycheck from the company for 5 months because he doesn't feel like he can optimally prepare to call fights while he's training, right? And I do think a lot of people in his position would, maybe watch half the film and take the money, and just maybe show up on Friday and just call the fights because their ego is such that they want the spotlight and they want the paycheck, and then they're talking about me, and he's just not that guy. And obviously it worked because he beat Pedro Munhoz. So, I understand a lot of people are coming at Cruzy. Certainly I could sit here and defend Daniel Cormier until I'm blue in the face in terms of his preparation, because he's not ill prepared, and I think that's an unfair categorization. So a lot to it, but I'm just glad my guy won his fight, man. Like for me, and Pedro Munhoz is my boy, right? But Dominick Cruz is one of my best friends. If I was getting married this weekend, like, he's a fucking groomsman. So for me, it's like, to have that energy from his win driving me into a pay-per-view when I'm a little bit under the weather was a pretty powerful thing.
Absolutely, man. Well, since you're completing 10 years in the UFC, if the UFC brass were to say, I don't know, Jon, we're going to gift you something. We're going to gift you the I don't know, the headliner of an amazing card. What would be that dream gig for you next year?
The actual fight, you're saying, like a singular fight, or just a gig?
A gig. Let's call it a gig, because I know there's a lot of fights going on. I don't want you to drop your own card, but if you had something in mind on that regard, that could work too.
Well, so last year when we were filming the best of 2020 for the UFC, we all gave our dream matchup for 2021. And mine was Khamzat Chimaev versus Colby Covington, right? And now here we are a year later, and I feel like I could sit here and give you the same answer, you know? So I'm just really excited to see Khamzat Chimaev get the big fight that he craves and get the chance to challenge himself, you know, because the thing is, you know, I think people misconstrue the comments that are made by me and made by UFC president Dana White. We're sort of just speaking from our own personal experience with this guy as a presence, as an athlete straight in front of us, you know, and that's why he gets his due from us. So let's see, you know, is it that crazy that he could fight Kamaru Usman for the title next year? You know, let's see. Let's see one of the top guys step up and fight him, you know, have at it. Oh, so that's sort of what's on the tip of my tongue with that.
Yeah, sounds like a phenomenal fight to have, man. I would love to see those two get at it. Well, in terms of time, we're kind of short, so we're going to just leave you with this. Lewis versus Daukaus is coming up next. Lewis is an underdog on this fight, which is kind of surprising to me, because the power that he carries is something else. And Chris Daukaus, even though he has a current streak and he's one of the biggest revelations for 2021 in terms of the heavyweight division, I don't know, remains to be seen. How do you feel about that main event coming up?
Well, I think the small octagon benefits Derek Lewis, right? Because there's less room in there. And I think that's sort of good because Chris Daukaus is very mobile. I probably would have had the betting odds flipped, you know, but I think it's pretty close on paper. You know, I think Derek Lewis just showed against Cyril Gane that a guy that moves really well can give him problems. So, but man, like, Derek Lewis is the most accomplished knockout artist in UFC heavyweight history. He's fought everybody. He's been in championship settings. So to see him plus 120 against a guy who's been in the UFC for less than 2 years, to me, seems a little bit crazy. But I do think Chris Daukaus' ceiling is high. I think his ceiling is championship potentially, especially if he can add some good size, because I do think he needs some size. If he can stay mobile and add some size, I think that would be a good move for Daukaus. But yeah, man, certainly surprised to see a plus number next to Derek Lewis's name for this weekend.
And your boy Belal Muhammad takes on Wonderboy Thompson in the co-main event. Are you torn about that one? Because I know you're a big fan of Wonderboy, and of course Belal is your boy.
Yeah, I mean, obviously I know Belal very well because of the podcast that he does with my twin bro. So yeah, I mean, that pulls at the heartstrings a little bit. I mean, obviously I have a more long-standing relationship with Stephen Wonderboy Thompson. So if Thompson wins, it's easy for me to sort of pivot and lean into the positive with all of that, you know. And I hope I'm not even speaking out of turn, but obviously Belal has become a good friend, and we've supported each other over the years. And I'm excited to see what he can do with the opportunity. You know, this is really the big fight that he's craved. Yeah, the Leon Edwards fight, but that came together quickly. I'm excited to see what Belal can do, and I also think the octagon size, it stands to reason, helps him too.
Absolutely. Well, it's been one hell of a year, Jon. I want to congratulate you on all your success, and thank you for all your hard work, because us as fans, we love what you do, and we're excited to see you becoming a 10-year name in the organization right now. So kudos to you on that. And if I may add, a big shout out for you as well on the Susie situation. I loved that little memorial that you did a few weeks back. It really touched my heart, man. So I want to leave you with that. And if you want to say something to the Latin American fans and all the Spanish-speaking fans that watch our show as the year ends, it's on you, man.
Well, I really appreciate the support from you and your entire contingent. And I know your listenership and viewership grows by the day. And I know you have very exciting things coming up in 2022. So I wish you all the best with that. And thank you for acknowledging my late great friend, Susie Friton, our longtime makeup artist, and so much more. I appreciate all of that goodwill from you. And yeah, man, exciting times, man. Exciting times. We'll chop it up again in a few months. And maybe Khamzat's in there with somebody by that point in time. But I wish you all the best. Best of luck handing out those awards, and we'll talk soon, brother.
Absolutely, my man. Thank you, Jon, for being here with us. Guys, we got it done again. The man is here. Thank you. Real hasta la muerte, Anik.
My man.
Got no time to relax, always working, no stop. Leave my soul on the track, bounce your head off the mat. This is one stop shop, got what you need in the back. Coming for the win, no weakness.